Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Children Education Policy and Accountability Committee. I'm Helen Rowbottom, the chair of this committee, and welcome also to people kind of joining online. So for tonight, before we start, I've just got a few housekeeping points to remind people of. This meeting is being live streamed to the Council's YouTube channel. So by participating both in person and online, you are consenting to being recorded. And if the fire alarm sounds, which it does sort of unusually frequently, please could we leave the meeting just via the nearest exit and down the stairs. And we will go around and introduce everyone shortly, but just as a reminder, just to remind people for your item who you are, repetition is good on that count. So apologies for absence is the first item. An apology has been received from Eleanor Allen. I also have both Councillor Richardson and Councillor Brown joining us online. So I hope that that's, I can't see them, but I hope that that's synced up. I'm sure it will be imminently. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do any members have any declarations of interest relating to the items tonight? No. Okay, thank you very much. Third item, the minutes of the last meeting. Do members agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 3rd of July this year as an accurate record? Great, lovely, thank you very much. Okay, right, perhaps we can start by just going round and introducing who's in the room and imminently online, but we'll start within the room just to introduce everyone. So perhaps I can start by going to my left.
Hello, I'm Councillor Mercy Ume, Shepherd Bush Ward Councillor. I'm here tonight for the education panel. Thank you.
Amanda Gordon, Operational Director, Children and Young People Services.
Sarah Sanderson, Head of Service, Children Looked After and Care Leavers.
Amelia Steele, Head of the Virtual School.
Peter Haylock, Operational Director, Education and SEND.
Jackie Monkshannon, Strategic Director of Children's Services.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Alex Anderson. I'm the Cabinet Member for Children Education in Hammersmith and Fulham.
I'm Nandini Ganesh. I'm the cooperative from Parents Active.
Good evening. I'm Councillor Afzal Khan from Palace and Hurlingham Ward. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Debbie Yao, Committee Coordinator. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you so much. So we will move to first main kind of agenda item tonight, which is the Virtual School Annual Report. So I will hand over to Amelia Steele, the Virtual School Head, who will be presenting this item.
Evening, everyone. I'm Amelia. I'm the Head of the Virtual School in Hammersmith. We're just waiting on the presentation to load and then we can start.
Perhaps, Amelia, just before we start, would you be able to characterise what's virtual and what's sort of not, or is that part of the present? I don't want to preempt it too much, but I read virtual and then saw some in-person things, so we can maybe articulate that.
We're not very virtual at all, but we do have a quick video to explain what the virtual school is to help.
Okay, great. Thank you. I won't
So we are going to start with a quick animation that explains what the virtual school is for many people who won't know. We're not very virtual at all and have lots of direct contact with our young people. Next slide, please. Technical difficulties.
The virtual school is exactly that, virtual. It is not a building, but a group of professionals who work closely with us to support to get the best outcomes. It does not replace the school we go to, but is an additional support to make sure we are happy, supported, and thrive in our education. In Hammersmith and Fulham, the virtual school consists of a head teacher, 2 senior practitioners, 4 a learning mentor, and a pathways coordinator. Each young person has their own virtual school teacher up until they are 18 years old. They all work closely with the school we go to, our social worker and carers to support us in our education and to make sure we are getting any help we need. They also help make sure we have access to activities that interest us or that may help us with our career plans.
So that's a quick introduction of what the virtual school is and what we do. So we support our children looked after to get the best out of their education. The next section of our presentation is, and it's madly clicking, is our annual report. Now, this is a young person's version of our annual report, so it's accessible to all and everyone can see what it is we're doing. So it looks at our cohort of children, so nursery, school age up to year 11, and then our post-16s up to 18. For this report, we've talked about what we do, so how we've helped. We supported our young people to attend clubs and activities, so ballet, scouts, dance, football, and a wide range of other things that our children are interested in. We have had book packages delivered each month to our primary school age children. We funded 1,500 hours of individual subject tuition to support our young people, provided over 60 laptops and tablets, and employed a post-16 learning mentor to help our young people who are in college feel more settled. What our children learned, so 44.5% of our year 2s achieved at least the expected standard in reading, writing and maths. In year 6, 75% achieved expected standard in reading, writing and 50% in maths. And 50% of our children on a GCSE pathway achieved grade 5 or above in their English and maths GCSEs. In year 13, 6 of our children completed their studies at level 3, and 5 of them are going to university in September. The one who's not has been employed by their school for a year before he goes to university in the following year. Next slide, please. So this year we have in our training offer, we have delivered 11 training sessions to our teachers and foster carers to help them to better understand the needs of our children. We've launched an attachment aware schools programme to make school a better place for all children. For enrichment, we've run a really wide range of activities, including 3 residentials and 3 week-long projects, which you'll get to see more of later, and supported our children to join after-school clubs and activities to broaden their interests and to really support them to make friends. We have worked with the University College London this year on a programme called PAC to improve the outcomes for our care experienced young people by designing a pre-employability programme and work experience offer. And next year we want to do even more. So we want to make sure that we develop a toolkit that makes the voice of our young people stronger in their personal education plan. We want to offer a weekly homework support group where our young people can get help with their studies. And we want to increase our training offer to do at least 18 sessions to reach even more professionals and cover more areas, and recruit at least 5 new schools to join our Attachment Aware Schools project. For enrichment, we want to continue to offer a calendar of really wide-ranging activities, and we want to improve access to enrichment opportunities specifically for our children with special educational needs. On post-16, we plan to run weekly drop-in support sessions and at least 4 open events with different employers at our hub, one of which we have already had. Next slide, please. The next series of slides includes feedback, performances and experiences of our young people. In some cases, we have used an animation as a visual representation, but the voices are very much of our children and young people themselves. Next slide, please.
Dear people, for years I was hurt by people I call family, women who love men more than their children. I love my family and I think they love me, but do not understand me. I am in foster care and I'm happy here. I love them and they love me a lot.
That's a poem written and performed by one of our young people.
I'm Zach. I'm look after child.
Sorry. And that was done by a young lady who, when we first started supporting her, was very anxious and nervous about reading and certainly wouldn't have read anything in front of anybody. She now loves to read and is seen at every opportunity with a book in her hand, and really credits that to the support of her virtual school teacher and inspiring a love for reading for her. The next slide is a video of one of our young people talking about how the virtual school has helped him.
And I just want to say a few things about the virtual school, such as, the fact that the virtual school works and supports young people in care with their progress in their education and especially their support in, employment and apprenticeships and that kind of thing. Virtual school also helps, young people up until they're 18 to help us get the best possible outcome of education that we could possibly get. And, they work with social services and us just to kind of provide, necessities, what we could possibly need. And then I had two people from the virtual school come and help. One, Michelle, and then the other one was Simon. They kind of helped quite a lot, I do have to say, especially the last couple of months, been quite a bit of help because I was very adamant against going to college. And then they said, might as well turn up to the open day. And then I went and I've been going ever since. Attendance is 100%. So, it's motivation,
Out in the garden, a bumblebee passes by my nose all the while. The kettle spoiled, forgot my toast. These servers remind us of what really matters most. Just how simple I can be. Let the children to see just how beautiful life can be. For in desire, I know not where life will lead. If I'm to inspire, lead by example, not by greed. All or not knowing, it's easier than you've been led to believe. Just how beautiful life can be. What to breathe. Let the children have their chance to see just how beautiful life can be. Let the children have a chance to see just how beautiful life can be. Just how beautiful life can be. Let the children have a chance to see just how beautiful life can be.
Our children and young people have told us that for next year's enrichment activities, they do want to go skydiving, jet skiing, and stay in a castle, specifically in Scotland. Yeah, so looking for volunteers already. That's a short selection of the photographs and videos of our activities over the summer. As you can see, we did lots of really exciting things and spent a lot of time together, which was wonderful. And it was staffed by a combination of social workers, virtual school staff, fostering. It was really, really lovely activities all the way through the summer. I'm going to close the presentation with a poem that's been written and performed by one of our young people, and is about her foster carer. Next slide, please.
A special person. Yes, I struggled on multiplication at school, but you've helped me improve to pass through. All you've wanted was for me to do good, when in fact, I studied at 6 in the morning whilst eating my food. I know you've been working hard, so I've decided to write you a card. This poem is dedicated for you, so you'll know how much I care for you too. To this special person I know, I may not be your daughter by blood, but I wished I was to heavens above. I may not be your daughter by soul, but we have things in common like eating and washing our bowls. I'm thanking you for the love you've given, those nightmares you've got ridden. Thank you for being you, my special person.
Great, thank you very much. Does anyone else have any responses before I come in with my usual mic hogging? Yes.
What is that hub which came up in the presentation? Looked a bit interesting.
So the hub is our care leavers building, dedicated space for them, and the hub stands for hope, unity, and belonging. So yeah, it's just been opened, and it's a space for our young people with area for socialization. There's a kitchen, staff will be there, and we'll do all sorts of projects for our independent living skills based at the hub. So yes, space dedicated for our young people.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chief. I think it's a great presentation, and hearing the children what they're saying, seems they're quite happy and well content. And for me, I think I have to say thank you. You know, I don't think it's easy, but you know, the swimming, all those things, and the Epping Forest and all that, I think it's wonderful. And to hear that children are learning, especially the last person that sent poem, that's really wonderful. So I have to say thank you. That's all comment I have to make. Thank you.
Great, thank you. That's absolutely.
Thank you, Chair. It was really wonderful to hear the impact that the mentors are having through the virtual school, and they're providing that extra layer of care. So that's all fantastic. My question was about the new program that you've launched, the Attachment Aware Schools program. Could you explain that a little bit? What it does, how it's structured, and
certainly. So last year we launched it as a pilot program, and we worked with 10 different schools from Hammersmith and Fulham that had expressed an interest. So we have a team of myself, a virtual school teacher, and 3 of our educational psychologist colleagues. We offer a centralized offer of training for each of those schools that's involved. One is a full day of face-to-face attachment and trauma, and the other areas are on emotion coaching and relational practice. And then we work as a link practitioner, so every school is assigned their own individual person. We go in and identify the current strengths and challenges that our schools are facing, what they want to achieve, and support them to get to that outcome at the end. So it's very different for each individual school, but yeah, they're all working towards being attachment aware. Thank you. Welcome.
I also wanted to echo. I think that's Nadia's. Nadia. Oh, sorry, second Nadia. Okay, to Nadia online.
Oh, thank you. No, it's all right. Just a very brief comment, really, to say what a fantastic presentation we just heard, and also how, you know, that powerful message coming from the in the young people's own voices is just so touching, and it's a credit to us as a service provider, you know, in terms of education, but also the mentoring. I mean, I'm echoing everybody's sentiments, really, but it was just wonderful to hear, you know, through the young people's own voices, the impressions and the impact of all that work has had on them. And it's just, yeah, it's incredible credit to the local authority and the education service, the mentors, the teachers. Just well done. It's wonderful to hear.
Great, thanks, Nadia. I absolutely want to chime in with that as well. And I had a few kind of points about, it's almost the way to articulate virtual schools, as I've understood it, is a kind of level of pastoral, remotely, not necessarily remotely accessed care, but a level on top of stuff that happens at school that augments, you know, young people's experience in the round, which is very precious. And I wanted to understand the kind of UCL, is it a study or was it an initiative kind of set up by them? What have they found at a meta level? I'd just be fascinated to kind of hear some of the detail, how long it's been running.
It was a knowledge exchange program funded through the trust. So UCL reached out to us and asked if we wanted to be part of that. So we have been really ambitious in what we wanted to achieve and worked with people and talent and the economy to develop a whole work experience program, because the commitment has been there, but we haven't had the infrastructure to really see that forward for our children and young people. So although primarily targeted for our care experienced young people, our ambition is that this will be for all of our residents. So we now have a full work experience program with pre-employability offer and post-work experience support to get those young people into employment training.
Brilliant. That was going to be one of my follow-up questions about the who can access it, and what are the sort of funding implications or sustainability of the program?
So the way in which we've worked is that actually it doesn't require additional funding at the moment. So we have used the project as a way to push forward our ambitions and make sure that we have all of that infrastructure in place, so that it becomes our normal way of working. Essentially, an economy are going to support with the matching of those opportunities and the young people.
Brilliant. Now, I suppose there's probably a very natural read across to things, well, potentially some aspects to the industrial strategy, but I don't want to sort of pinch too many items from a later agenda, but let's make sure we pick up on the link across. Fantastic. From my perspective, they were the crews, but wonderful to hear. I mean, especially in children's own words and young people's own words. So that's superb. Did anyone else have any final comments on this item before we move on? Sorry, Elena.
If I could just take the opportunity to showcase the hard work of my team a little bit more before we close, that'd be really appreciated, and excuse my funny voice. The virtual school offers that containment for our children, and can be there to help them strive and to do things they're really interested in, getting them engaged in school when they're finding it really difficult. The enrichment project that we do in the summer gives us an opportunity to have an immersive participation experience. So the richness of what our children tell us about being in our care when we're having fun activities alongside them is just far better and far informative than when we do that in the normal week, when we do it through our other participation, children in care council, those sorts of things. So although they have value, we just get something far greater when we're sat alongside them, and they just share different levels of their experience and their stories. And these guys give up a lot of their time over the summer to go and do that and stay away from their family and support our children. And it was just wonderful. I got the opportunity to go on a couple of the events, and it is really marvellous what they do for our young people.
Yes, very good point tonight. Actually, when you said there's no extra sort of funding or budgeting things, let's just make sure people aren't being stretched. Let's articulate the value of it and the investment of time or money into it, just so that it can be sustainable, not least for people supporting it in their own time. I think that's maybe one of my reflections of watching it, but brilliant, and obviously the future of how we deliver kind of astute and informed kind of services. So brilliant, looks great. Thank you so much. Okay, to move on, is there anything else? Oh, there's another hand up, beg your pardon. Councillor Richardson.
Oh, thank you. Apologies, my sound's very bad because I'm on Zoom. My computer doesn't like Zoom. But just to echo, what a brilliant, innovative idea, and well done everyone for actually making it happen and giving those young people another chance. But could I, because I missed a bit at the beginning, what sort of numbers are we looking at?
So currently we have around 212 as of today.
Yeah, we've about 212 cared for children, so they all are known to the virtual school, even from birth, really. It's not, plus our care experienced young people, which is about 250 care experienced young people, because we continue to involve ourselves and support young people until they're 25 when they're in education and training.
Wow, that's amazing. And what sort of capacity to expand does it have? Do you have?
We are a statutory service to an extent, so we have statutory duties, so we
Mm.
have to meet the needs of our young people regardless of how many they are.
Thank
You're
you.
also involved in a sort of pilot around support to children in need, as well as cared for children. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
So the Department for Education extended the remit in a non-statutory way for the virtual school 2 years ago, where we have a strategic oversight for children who have or have had a social worker in the last 6 years. So that is obviously a considerable amount of more children. And we are still developing our offer for those young people. We have an advisory teacher that specifically supports that cohort and works with families and schools to identify any issues and overcome those.
Oh, well, that's great to hear, because I think that cohort of pupils are really in need of following COVID. A lot of them still haven't got back on their feet yet. So that's great to hear.
And just to
Thank you.
just to echo that back, so the in terms of the kind of statutory lens on that, does that for virtual schools apply across the board, or is it that you've got groups where there's a statutory obligation for it to be incorporated and it's the right thing to do for all children, or are you scaling it up because of need or right thing to do?
So the personal education plan is statutory. So every child looked after needs to have a personal education plan that's reviewed 3 times a year. What goes around that is what we feel is the right thing to do. So our enrichment program is certainly not statutory, but it brings so much to our young people and opens up things they'd never even thought of before. So it's really important.
Yeah, understood. Great. Thank you. Brilliant. Lovely. Okay, I will move us on just in the interest of time, but that's brilliant to hear about that. To the next item, item 5, which is the Hammersmith and Fulham Local Area Outcomes Framework, and I will hand over to Peter to present this item.
Thanks very much, Councillor. So the Local Area Outcomes Framework is a key document that's been created specifically with children and young people with SEN and disabilities across the local authority. It links to our SEN strategy, which has been sort of gone through the kind of the processes recently, and also to our ordinarily available guidance. So the key and the statement is the same that sits at the top of the SEN strategy, but it's worth repeating because it's our overall aim and vision really for this area of the department. We want all children and young people in Hammersmith and Fulham with special educational needs and disability to lead happy, healthy and fulfilling lives and achieve their life goals. The outcomes framework is very much about their life goals and the direction of travel. So this document has been co-produced with children and young people in schools as part of surveys, etc. And we will now be looking at kind of developing it over the next kind of 6 to 9 months with additional surveys and other pieces of information to ensure that we've got a really clear set of outcomes which we want our children and young people to achieve. So the 5 outcomes that they've defined for themselves are firstly that their voice is heard, valued and acted upon. Secondly, that they're able to learn. Thirdly, feel happy and enjoy good health and well-being. I feel safe, supported and part of my local community, and I have choice and control. So those are the 5 kind of areas of outcomes. And as we move through, you can see on the next part of the document that those are kind of are broken down into kind of different elements, and these then link to what's called our SEN scorecard, which is the data that sits behind these. I won't go through those today. So just to give you an example, so voice is heard, valued and acted upon. Essentially, this is then defined as what this means for me. And this is, I can see a change in response to my ideas. I have a trusted adult who listens to me and I am treated equally and fairly. I'm sure we can all appreciate a very kind of good points to work on. So we developed this outcomes framework in conjunction with the Council for Disabled Children, who supported us with the kind of surveys and focus groups. And we're very much looking to kind of develop this and implement this as part of our whole SEN local area framework for Hammersmith and Fulham. It links to our key priorities of work around robust identification and assessment, development of sufficient, inclusive and effective local provision and our plans for successful preparation for adulthood, including person-centered pathways to education, health and care, and employment. So over to the councillors in terms of any questions.
Great. I just wanted to start, if I may, Peter, thank you so much, if you could just sort of describe the process, you know, frequency, how, just as a kind of baseline, who's engaged, how it's supported, just literally the process of how these are gathered, how these 5 are reached.
Okay, so essentially it was done as a part of a series of different focus groups across the summer, where we had the Council for Disabled Children went into 4 of our schools and did a series of focus groups with the young people. This was built on iterations that had come very much from the past, so it had been involved with young people from then. And then what we will do each year is a survey out to parents and young people themselves and the schools to check in whether we are really meeting the criteria that sit within these outcomes. We're going to work with different stakeholders to co-produce that survey, so it's meeting a number of different needs, because I know obviously people get over-surveyed in life, and it's important that we're using that survey as a kind of a key benchmark. So the plan in the first instance is to do the next survey in January. So we'll be working with stakeholders over the next few weeks to prepare the links to that, and then that will go out to all the young people and parents with special educational needs, whether they have an EHCP plan or they're just on the SEN support, so they've got an opportunity to feed into the cycle of evaluation.
Great. And in terms of this, I'm assuming will be, but you know, feel free to expand upon this. Will be it's almost a framework of what to measure against for how we deliver everything. I'm sure internally that's the case. Do we communicate with NHS or other services to make sure they're aligned with these very well articulated principles?
100%. So the SEND delivery group and CHESC, which I never remember, Jackie, so hopefully you can jump in.
It's Children's Health, Education, Social Care
So
group, which is a joint governance group with our colleagues in health and myself, working together to look at a range of joint projects and programs across the children's agenda, particularly focusing on, but not solely, on support to children with special education needs and disabilities. And this is one of the pieces of work that sits in one of our programs.
So the SEND delivery group will look at this, or the SEND scorecard that's been matched to these 5 separate outcomes. Some of those outcomes are very obviously data driven, such for example school results, etc., that can link in and show how well we're doing. Some of those outcomes are driven very much more by the survey. So for example, the one I mentioned previously is difficult to measure by attendance data, but it could be measured by how people are responding to a survey and whether they feel that they are being listened to, etc. So it's deliberately designed so you've got a mix of softer, more qualitative measures and harder, more quantitative measures.
Yeah, understood. And is there a reason why SEND isn't explicitly in the title? Just I got there in the end, but just from the framework, I know it was couched in the kind of cover letter and things, and it's explicit in the second sentence, but yeah, I just wondered.
I think the key is that the outcomes could be for anybody, but we are specifically honing them for young people with SEND.
Okay, so the framework isn't solely SEN, or it's which, yes, say a bit more about that.
It's focused more specifically for SEN young people, yeah.
So it sits beneath the various strategic documents that we've been producing, which have gone through Cabinet and Health and Wellbeing Board. And what we wanted to do was, because we have a long data summary, we wanted to work with the Council for Disabled Children to look at how children and young people, parents and carers could be involved in that data and which bits would be relevant in addition to surveying, but also being very clear about the outcomes that children and young people want to see. And this is the first time I think we've been very explicit in this way.
It's great. I mean, if anything, it would have been great to see. I think the principles very well articulated. The performance measures are really interesting. I wondered if it's been quite longitudinal, this development, whether you could speak to, or whether something could be sent out subsequently around some of the metrics articulated in performance measures. Some of them, as you say, are softer, some of them are more objective, but how does this impact on, reduction in disputes or educational outcomes? Has that been mapped, measured?
Yeah, so the SEND scorecard has all of that data and it shows it over time for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
So we can share that with you if needs be.
Yeah, it would be just very interesting to see. That's great. Did anyone else have anything they'd like to come in with at this point? Yes, that's nice to come.
So quite in line with I think what you were trying to say, Chair. On the last slide, you've linked all these very well articulated outcomes from the framework with the performance measures. And I can see that quite a few of these performance measures must be things that you already are measuring and do measure regularly. So I just feel that instead of, yes, you're going to do the survey, but it would be very helpful to have a baseline of where you're standing now, because it's the services that you're providing to SEN, the SEN services you're providing are not new. There's a lot that happens that the council is already doing. So it would be nice to see against all these articulated new outcomes, the performance measures that you already have in place. For example, the percentage of SEND who are suspended from permanently excluded, or those who already have a plan, and what are the waiting time trends for ASD assessments. So that data is already available to you. You already have that. So I think it would be great to see the baseline measures and see how the framework develops over time and effectively improves these percentages, I think is what you hope to achieve.
Yes,
with
thank
that
you.
focus.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. And we certainly can bring it back to a further meeting. The intention really was to launch it and share it as a children's document, as opposed to giving a report on how we're doing. But we're more than happy to come back to PAC at a future date with an analysis and review of where we are.
Yeah, because I think at the previous meeting, we were waiting for the SEND meeting to take place, and we were waiting for SEND data to come back to us in the July meeting. And I think I asked a question about SEND then, and it was said that we're about to have those meetings in the upcoming weeks, and we will come back with data. So I'm still hoping that we'll be able to see some data. So it'd be good to bring those baseline measures back to us at the next meeting, hopefully, with the Chair's permission.
Yes, I agree. And I'm looking on, and this is just because I suspect you'll have a good story to answer. I will come to other, okay. Councillor Simon.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarity, so this is obviously setting up the framework by which we will be gathering the data to then be shared. So this isn't about trying to find the baseline data for these points, which we would already have some aspect of. This is kind of setting the exam question that we're then hoping young people are going to feed back to us, so we can get a clear understanding of what the broader picture is. So when you look at the last page of the document, those are all the measures that we, I'm sure, have in a variety of ways, but just having it in a concentrated way. So this is the framework that we are setting out to then gather all the data. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I am seeing other documents online that are kind of, as you say, this is iterative, so there's some form of it before. So it would just be interesting to see, you've obviously iterated it on the premise of the data that's come before, I would assume, and people's voice. So it would just be useful to see the genesis of that, but we can absolutely have another item. And so you've asked us to comment on, I guess, the measures themselves. So I know I have other people kind of waiting to make a comment. So perhaps we could simmer on our response to that, if that is indeed the question. Thank you, Nadia.
Nandini, no, Nadia. It's confusing. No, I was just wondering about the profile of young people you've interviewed. Like, did you also ask complex needs young people? I think we also asked this question when we were having a discussion with the local authority.
work with a number of the different special schools and also some of the mainstream schools as well. So it was quite a wide mix. Specifically getting this up and running in terms of the surveys was we needed to make sure that we could get kind of clear kind of understanding of what the questions needed to be, etc. And we'll be, as we move through the next phase in terms of the surveys and the collection of data, we'll be able to spread it out to a wider number of young people.
The reason I asked is, especially the last one, you were focusing more on the employment side of things, internships, education, and you know that some people with complex needs don't have that outcome. They could move on to other things which hasn't been covered in the I have choice and control bit. So I was wondering whether you actually asked students who are more verbal, could articulate their views, and whereas you do have very complex needs young people who will not be able to articulate. So did you capture that data? Was it done through parents? Was it done, did the schools help you capture that voice?
Yeah, so it wasn't done by parents deliberately, because this is the Children's Outcomes Framework, which was a very important part of this, but it was definitely done in conjunction with the schools.
And one more question. Some of it are quite soft outcomes, like enjoying their life as an adult, etc. So that, how would you sort of try and measure that?
So that's where the survey will come in. So we've, at the moment, we have the SEND scorecard, which obviously you see as part of the SEND delivery group and part of CHESS, which very much measures all of the waiting times and all of those sorts of things. We realised that that wasn't enough, which was the whole purpose of putting the outcomes framework together, so that we could bring in some of those, frankly, more important questions around those kind of the softer, more qualitative outcomes. And that's what we'll look to measure through the different surveys, which we need to co-produce in the next couple of weeks, so we can start to get those out in January.
Great. Does anyone else have any comments you'd like to offer up? I think that just as a final reflection, I think the process you've articulated of how you do it, and it's always hard to make sure, as you say, Peter, that you're not sort of exhausting. We have a very vocal and very engaged group of children, young people in the council, I think, from all of the presentations. So it must be hard to turn up and down. And I think that this is a very emotionally intelligent list of criteria, and I'd be very interested, I guess, a lingering reflection. This is obviously the first time this has been conceived, but maybe it's just me. I want to see what I think will inevitably be huge impact of things like the first item on virtual schools. I think it's important to articulate, or I'm sure you will. It's just, for me, most fascinating to see how it's drawing through into other fundamental things and impacts on people's lives, which I know will be articulated in time with this. So excited to see that. And I think, as I say, very thorough and a good mixture of emotionally intelligent while also being objective in the measures. So from my perspective, it looks great. Any other final comments before we move on? No, good, excellent. Thank you very much. And we have the pleasure of you again, Peter, for the next item on the industrial strategy and how it relates to education. So take it away. Thank you.
Again, I'll be fairly brief and then just open up for questions. I think it's probably best to get people's views, etc. So essentially, you'll all be aware of the great developments that have occurred, especially in the north of the borough, in terms of the White City Innovation District and other developments across Hammersmith and Fulham. There's been a key drive over the last 6 months or so to ensure that our children and young people are having an opportunity to benefit from those developments, and that's partly what this sort of delivery around the industrial strategy in education is all about. So essentially, the vision for this is that Hammersmith and Fulham is a truly inclusive global economic hotspot. We are aiming to ensure that children have got an opportunity to have a lifetime approach to STEM with a triple N, which stands for science, technology, engineering, maths, media, and I've now forgotten the final M. I do apologise. Medicine, sorry, thank you. And those skills for all of our young people are part of their education and their curriculum. We will be aiming to equip residents with skills and aspirations and awareness so that there's access to jobs and to create by 2026. We want to be ruthlessly inclusive, so it very much links in to the presentation we've heard previously from the virtual school, etc., and some of our care leavers, and making sure that they've got clear access to this. So the industrial strategy is being developed, working with my team in education and the economy as well. And the objective is to ensure that it's got an opportunity for young people in early years, primary and secondary, looking to support with teacher training and an enhanced vocational offer, especially for within the adults and the economy team, and in the potential to develop apprenticeships. So what that kind of looks like in its sort of entirety is, so we're thinking through a kind of maths, etc. program for nursery age young people. In terms of that program, we're looking at how the STEM curriculum and extracurricular offer can be developed and enhanced for our primary and secondary education as young people there. We're looking at how we can bring CPD programs into place for our teachers so that they're well prepared to develop the curriculum and the education for the young people moving forward. As mentioned, we've got a number of different courses I'll talk through in a second are being developed by our adults colleagues through the economy, and apprenticeships are absolutely key to this at every possible level to ensure that children and young people have got that opportunity to enter the employment in an inclusive way. So in the summer, we had a big conference to bring people together, which was co-hosted at Imperial College. We've also run a session for young people as well at the White City Reveal, aiming to run a number of those. I'll come back to that one in a second. And we've grown our team to bolster capacity to engage with schools and businesses. So far, we've done a number of pieces of work with the primary and the secondary schools. We've got specific focus on 10 primary schools, identifying their curriculum areas and their focuses in terms of what's going to be delivered. And we're focusing in there on computing, science, and design and technology as the three main subject areas, because we know that's in part where schools sometimes have a challenge in terms of developing those curriculums themselves. And we also know that's what the businesses within the innovation district have got the clear expertise in supporting how to deliver. We're also looking to develop in the first instance for secondary schools, working with them in close proximity to develop the computer science, design, technology and science curriculums as well. We ran a great session up in White City where we had 120 students learning and getting an introduction to the White City Innovation District, and they had an opportunity to meet with 14 local businesses, which was fantastic. And then finally on the next slide, we've got some really clear programs being developed with the BBC, doing both BBC Studios and BBC Works, where they're doing a number of tours, careers talks and conversations, and they're now working directly with one of our secondary schools. Our adult and vocational programs have started to get some real fruition. So we've got a maths program, which is being backed by 280,000 of council funding, and also there's £400,000 of funding going into a 2-year program focusing on the development of jobs within the STEM industries. The teacher training sessions, we're working with a group called We Go Forth as part of an EU initiative, and the apprenticeships is something that's being developed very much in-house through the economy team, through their inclusive employment opportunities that exist there. And I was going to show the video, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do the link to the Good Life Charter. So I'll make sure that you've got a visual of that to look at another day.
Brilliant, thank you. I have a load of questions on this, so I'm almost tempted to release people from my voice for a bit. If anyone had anything immediate, otherwise I can start. I'll slice it up. I mean, this is, I think, one of the most exciting things we have going on in our proximity to White City and the hub that is there, and a growing hub. Every time I'm there, it's more and more kind of buzzing and bigger. It's brilliant to see this thread down to practical action, a plan, stuff that's happening, and it's only going to get bigger from here. So I'm not, this is nothing but exciting to me. Some of the questions I would have about, and this is no way a critique, it's more just so we can build on it together in this discussion, is lots of, from the workshop I attended in July, the thing that was raised or that seems to be raised via teachers is, of course, there is this kind of gleaming citadel of White City, and how do we create more of a semi-porous border between our schools, and the kind of frequency or habitual nature of children and young people going there. And there were, several things, a lot of which you picked up on, and I'm sure is the start of building the relationships and building that familiarity. A couple of things that are kind of, for me, would be the big hitter, big wins of this would be something like drawing on the brilliance of the people who are on campus to see if there's mentoring scheme for a lot of the kind of, I don't know, the postgrads or students there. Something more systematized in terms of, it's fantastic to have meetings with businesses, and if they're proactive and smart, I'm sure they'll be continuing to be in touch with you to get best and the bright kids through their programs as well. But things like apprenticeships or post-secondary education, what that leads to, I wondered if we'd articulated that bit yet, or whether that's kind of coming, or basically the big, from a series of very good initial brokerings, the trajectory and where it could go to. If we say the sky is, this is how, with a cyclical economy, we could have education here in Hammersmith and Fulham, this is where we're motoring towards, and we're taking these steps towards it.
So I think there's three things that we've developed directly since the event that we had in July. The first is the number of events that we've actually had in White City, where children have been invited and have been meeting with businesses, having an opportunity to get behind the glass doors and get in there and kind of do those types of conversations. That's the first thing. The second thing is we have an event on Thursday where we'll have up to 20 schools meeting with 20 businesses to work on the curriculum delivery. And the key there is that each of those combinations of people will develop a pilot activity that then can map out into all of the other schools. So I won't go through names, but so we'll have, as I said, we'll have 20 businesses who will work with 20 different schools to develop those pilot programs that then can be promoted and spread across all of the other schools as well. And then the third thing is what I mentioned before about the kind of the development of the inclusive employment through the economy team. It's not my area of expertise, I'm afraid, but so they're very much working with the different businesses to track and map all of the apprenticeship opportunities that exist. So we've got a really clear understanding of what is already in operation and what the gaps might be and what needs to be developed. As I said, that's being very much honed by the economy and the employment team at the moment. So there's really good join up between the two departments in the council and making sure that we're driving the types of things that you mentioned forward.
Perfect. It actually is making me think, a good point, Peter, on what falls to who, but it would be good to have maybe a meeting themed, and I can do some thinking about this, but a theme meeting on the industrial strategy and all the different people inputting to it to make sure that everyone has their allocated piece. So perhaps we can have that as an action, Debbie, if that's okay to.
So we do that bi-weekly at the moment.
But to be, maybe to have some external people attend and just make sure more to get the freshers like thinking on it, just to kind of socialize it with everyone almost rather than action groups. But because I know that you have regular meetings on it, but tell me if that feels like.
So there's an industrial strategy board that we're putting together that will bring that forward. We're just working on the governance with the economy team at the moment because they also have a separate board. So just making sure that we've got the right people reporting to the right areas.
Sounds good. And did you want to come in?
Yeah, I was just going to say we could have something based around industrial strategy, but also outcomes more broadly. So looking at attainment, industrial strategy and skills. So I think that could work well here.
Yeah.
And skills report.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Councillor, is that perhaps we could bring it when we get the annual education report, which we'll be bringing once we've had all of the validated results, and we could marry the two.
I'd be, we can liaise on date. I'd almost be before we come down to what we're already doing, I think it would be great to have a session, and apologies if this is happening in another forum, where if we've got the kind of future of these industries in the borough, it'd be very interesting to see if we could kind of draw down from them what they think future industries would be, and filter, you know, is there, with virtual schools, it's making me think, is there some sort of augmented offer that we could do in partnership with business that actually pivots children to not just have the curriculum, but things that are really going to pivot towards the future of the best and brightest industries for their careers, etc. I'm seeding that as a query, not something to make people wake in their boots. But I think with the resources in the north of the borough, potentially we could design something very exciting by way of a kind of feature or augmented or something that has ingredients of that curriculum potentially.
So absolutely, that's the intention of, for example, the event on Thursday. It's to create those encounters and the dialogue, and to help schools build on the standard curriculum, as many of our schools already do, but in a more systematic way, supported by the borough, to think of the future and to get ahead of the agenda and get ahead of any sort of national curriculum or standards, so that children and young people in Hammersmith and Fulham are, beginning to envision a future that might look very different to what it currently is.
Brilliant. That's fantastic to hear. And actually, I think what's really sophisticated about the work that the council has done, that you and your teams have done, is that you've been very emotionally intelligent in exploring how to best engage children and all the different ingredients of that in being open to learn, being confident and open to learn. I think there's something really fascinating about that fusion of the way you've articulated and frameworks you use, and the sophistication of tailoring education here with moving to future economies. It's just a very inclusive and progressive combination of things. So for me, extremely exciting. I will pause and just swing right and left to see if there are any questions online. Oh, okay. Now I'm assuming that's Councillor Richardson with a question there.
Yes, it is. Sorry, I haven't got my right Zoom link. Yeah, a couple of questions about access. It looks fantastic, by the way, so well done. And it's great that you're working closely with the economy. Is it all going to be, the offer going to be available online and all for everyone to see? Because that's and everyone be able to know what's on offer, because sometimes there are lots of fantastic things going on that people don't necessarily all know about. And how are a question about inclusion, really, how are we including, thinking that EHCPs go up to 25, how are we including the people with the EHC plans, and are we working with the EHCP workers on that, just to make sure that it's all accessible to them? And another question, I don't want to deluge you with too many questions, but I'm just thinking about the link in with the DWP and the various schemes like the Shore Trust, all those schemes. Are we making sure that the EHCP workers and the social workers and things all know about that, and it's all being properly signposted for people? And lastly, specific autism awareness in this, in the inclusive apprenticeships, because I did notice Imperial's employment offer doesn't include autism. So sorry if that's rather a jumble of questions, but I think they're quite a lot about access and signposting.
So I think the answer is yes, yes, and yes. But so the key point in terms of promotion is that we want to develop these pilot programs first, and then be really clear that they work. So I don't want to promote something until we know that it has really good traction and really good impact, and it has a really positive opportunities for young people. So things like a kind of dedicated website that shows all of the industrial strategy activities in education will come on board once we know that those pilot activities have been successful. In terms of employment, that's absolutely key to this and ensuring that that's inclusive. So that work already starts with the annual reviews in year 9, and then we'll continue to develop further moving forwards. And that is an absolute key driver in terms of the opportunities that we want to provide for all young people, including those with EHCPs. And it links very much to the outcomes framework that we were talking about previously, and ensuring that the opportunities for employment, etc., can be for whoever is able to take those up, and making sure that that is signposted really early for them. And that for me is absolutely essential. In terms of the specifics around autism, I would have to look into the detail around Imperial, but the absolutely key is that they're included in all of the different programs and the opportunities that exist.
Yeah, I think it was something I looked at, and they mention ADHD, but they don't mention dyslexia and dyspraxia, but they don't mention autism. So it might be worth, maybe it's just that no one's particularly been raising it with them. It might just have been that particular thing I was looking at, but it might be worth highlighting in that. Also, the other question was, just coming up to that, how have we got a good way of, do all the secondary schools record those encounters with employers? For this is something that's particularly important with SEND children who might not be able to remember what they've done, or to tell their parents, or to sort of get a CV together. Is there a uniform way of they all have of recording the those encounters with the world of work?
So no, there won't be. All of our secondary schools, remember, are an academy, so it's up to them to develop their own programs, as you would expect. What you have is the Gatsby benchmarks, which all children and young people should be able to achieve. Our plan with this industrial strategy in education is to enhance what schools are already doing and to give them those additional opportunities. How schools track that is very much up to them.
Do we have a way of doing it for the EHCP students?
Not specifically, but it would be part of their annual review as you move forward in terms of the things that have been achieved and what the next steps might be.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to articulate, Lucy, which exact areas you were looking at where you felt it wasn't explicitly mentioned?
Sorry, Helen, could you speak a bit more into your microphone?
Yeah, sorry, apologies. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Did you want to raise exactly which documents or which areas you haven't seen it, so that we could more specifically, because I'm looking, is it in the items tonight, the agenda? No. Okay, fine.
Sorry, are we talking about Imperial?
Well, you said that you haven't seen it in something that you've been looking at.
Oh yeah, it was actually my husband was looking at it. He was telling me about it. So yeah, and I have noticed in several things like the Fulham football strategy, autism doesn't get a mention, whereas dementia does. So in the so I'm just really trying to raise that profile, make sure it is included. But I can chase that down, Helen, and get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
But it's just something that autism is very specific, so, and often the sort of reasonable adjustments for employers and things like that need to be slightly different.
Thank you. Did you want to come in?
Sorry, Chair, I wasn't quite clear on what specifically was being queried there, because obviously Imperial will have their own approaches to things.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. So I'm exactly saying which articles, but I don't think we've explicitly heard, but thank you.
That's fine. But
I haven't got it at my fingertips. I can track it down though.
Just to say, obviously, Imperial have got a lot around autism on all of their websites, careers advice, disability, careers advice, and that's obviously. But we are very keen to work with them on to make sure that we can be as inclusive as possible for everyone who can take up these opportunities.
Indeed, that was precisely. Okay, so we are actually, I had one final point to make, which is just, Peter, the final point I wanted to make was on life science districts and how they will be inclusive or not. Obviously, they're popping up with increasing proliferation. I remember when I had a chat with someone from MIT who was the outgoing vice provost at the time. He said that for all that people lauded that as an innovation district, that was the one thing that he didn't really they didn't really manage to now as one of the trailblazers was that inclusion. So it's almost, I don't know this off the top of my head. I know a million ideas that we all have locally. It feels intuitively like we're gathering to the right place, but I wonder if there is somewhere else globally that both combines the might of a global innovation district and has managed to nail that inclusive growth piece as a.
I don't know. Sorry.
We are, of course, working very closely with international partners to see who has managed to get this right and to learn lessons and see what they've done and how to make it better locally. So obviously we have got our own innovation district, and we are looking at partners in places like Barcelona, Milan, to see where they have managed to incorporate not just growth and new jobs, but also making sure that they are really feeding an education to make sure they've got a local pipeline of talent coming through so everyone benefits from the growth locally. So we are working closely with others to see what they've done, learn, make it better ourselves locally.
Sure thing. It's who's nailed it though. It's who's done it, not
So-
just who's thinking about it.
Sure. So Milan are very good. Barcelona, very good. I probably couldn't go into individual detail about every single one, but there are a number of people who have done this and who are years ahead of the UK. Unfortunately, when you're talking about innovation and growth, the UK are not quite there as some of our international partners, and we have very much missed out by not being part of the EU. But there are lots of places around the globe who have really managed to nail not just innovation and growth, but also feeding in an education pipeline as well to make sure local residents benefit.
Great. That's awesome.
Thank you, Chair. So my question was about the STEM employer accredited teacher training program that you've mentioned here. And I was wondering how do you plan to build that CPD program for H&F teachers? And the other thing I wanted to say was that I know that there's a lot of academies in Hammersmith and Fulham, and what you're trying to do is to support the work of those academies. So I know that around year 10, year 11 is when a lot of schools want their year 10 students to have some work experience. So maybe, if you could tie in your industrial strategy and put in some careers guidance and create an opportunity for the secondary schools to be in touch with employment, or not employment, but internship opportunities for these year 10 students. Because a lot of the focus that I'm seeing is in the industrial strategy is around education, but not necessarily for young children. Mostly it seems that a lot of the statistics you have is around adult education and people who are leaving secondary school or who are leaving care. So I'm quite keen about secondary school pupils getting that benefit of the STEM program with local businesses and getting that aspiration early on in their education with that connectivity.
So that's absolutely the plan. So the accredited programs will run through the learning partnership, which already exists. So the intention is to grow that and develop that. We're actually intending to start earlier than year 10, because year 10 is too late because they're already doing their GCSEs, and therefore developing curriculum programs around that doesn't work very well. So we're actually looking more towards the top end of Key Stage 2. And Key Stage 3 in terms of the curriculum programs and how we get the businesses working for the young people around that. We actually already have developed a large careers program that schools buy into. So it's not traded offer as such when I say buy into. There's lots of different programs that exist as part of the careers network already. And those opportunities are shared with all schools, whether it be opportunities for internships or work experiences, etc., etc. The traditional idea of work experience is not really what we're looking to replicate here, because it doesn't give the children the experiences that we want them to experience. What we really want them to get the grasp of is that kind of entrepreneurship and developments that can occur as part of the curriculum. What often happens with sort of traditional work experiences, you have young people going off and doing things that aren't really relevant to their future careers. So we're very much looking at more bespoke developments, etc., that will exist within our present careers program and can enhance what already exists.
Because I'm quite happy to see that there's a focus on computer science and design and technology. And I had a little survey of the secondary schools, and not all secondary schools offer computer science as a subject for GCSEs and for A levels. And going forward, that's a linkage. That's somewhere we need to make that investment, that all schools move towards that direction, towards a digital economy. We need more computer science trained students coming out of secondary school.
That's exactly the plan. So that's the whole purpose of bringing in the businesses to try and support that. As mentioned previously, I can't define what subjects a school might offer, and trying to employ computer science teachers is a real challenge, because there's frankly not enough of them. So that's often the reason why schools have to deliver this in a different way, which is why, especially at Key Stage 3, we want to develop these pilot programs to enhance subjects like computing and design through working with the business experts to be able to offer some fantastic programs moving forwards.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Nandini.
I'm just wondering, Peter, is supported internships part of the industrial strategy as well?
100%, yes. I see it as being a big part of it. The key is that we really want to grow that, and we really want to increase the number of businesses and opportunities for supported internships that we have in the local authority. As mentioned previously, that very much starts with our Year 9 annual reviews and making sure children are prepared, linked to the outcomes framework we were talking before, and how that then can accelerate onwards into supported apprenticeships and other things.
Supported internship, supported apprenticeships and into employment, because right now you have a lot of supported internships not necessarily leading to employment. So hopefully that's
about 72%.
Sorry?
It's about 72%. So it's not
leading
too,
to employment.
Yeah.
Okay. But it will improve, continue to improve with more opportunities.
That's definitely the plan. Yeah.
And one more question, sorry. And will housing and other strategies also keep up, because you need people to stay in the borough, live in the borough to make use of all these things?
Nandini, I can't answer that one, I'm afraid. Sorry. Sorry.
But an important partner, I suppose, in this development.
I think, Nandini, that your point around, what sometimes is called like the circular economy, we have people traveling in, we have people who grow up here, we have people who are coming here from a business perspective. There are, studies, there is evidence that kind of, not insular, but to make sure that there is, a virtuous circle of that happening does retain talent. There will be structural issues, things like, can people afford to still rent or buy here, and massive macroeconomic things that are going on. But certainly these clusters will incentivize, they do become hubs and self-fulfilling prophecies of good stuff, and when done well can kind of make the wealth move and bolster the whole area as well. But it is like a fascinating topic and quite complex about that, how that happens. Okay, great. Any other final ruminations on that, which is very exciting? Kind of what I wanted to thank you all for is, on top of all the other amazing work we've heard about this evening, this is one of those, like, we'd be fools to not capitalize on the amazing opportunity of this, but I recognize it's another tranche of work on top of stuff that goes on, and it will yield and it will be incredible if it's already is, but it's a really punchy agenda, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So thank you to everyone for working on this on top of everything else, and will be very exciting. I can see we've got the hat trick with you, Peter, with Summer in the City as item 6. So
thank you. Yeah. So I just, again, I'll probably go quite briefly through the document because I'm sure you've had an opportunity to read it, but Summer in the City has been another fantastic success this year. There's 5 weeks of programs that were delivered, opportunity to engage with 3,435 young people, children and young people. It was 19,000 nearly in terms of total attendance. And of those, 62% of those were young people with free school meals, which obviously was the key driver for the programme, and 37% of them had a SEND need. So it was, as you can see from here, we had a huge number of different partners that were involved. I think it was 29 off the top of my head. I'm just trying to find the right page, apologies. And they stretched from a whole different variety of activities, from sporting activities, action on disability, Dance West, the Ealing Trail Finders, Fulham Reach, the Care Leavers Service, all sorts of different sports clubs and youth clubs, etc. And I had an opportunity to have 2.5 fantastic days in the middle of August where I got to go around and just see smiling children really enjoying their sessions, whether they were getting kind of wet on the river in their own boats or all sorts of other things going on in Ravenscourt Park, etc. So I think it's a real testament to the local authority in terms of what's delivered, obviously with a specific focus on food and ensuring that young people are fed in every single session that they attend. And you can see the really fantastic ideas and delivery that's occurred in terms of the activities and the opportunities that were provided. Jack, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, because obviously the key part of the programme is from yourself.
Yeah, no, just to say that it's been a fantastic, enriching, enjoyable, fun-filled experience. The weather was terrible and that did impact significantly. The report references some of the challenges, which include ghost bookings, so people booking and not turning up, and it makes some suggestions as to how to improve that next year. And we know that the hugely popular uniformed services event was affected at the last moment by new age restrictions, which was a bit of a shame. The weather really was against us, unfortunately, this year, right from the launch, which Councillor Sanderson attended, and lots of our staff also gave up their time. But we're really grateful to the 28 providers that led this, and to Let Me Play, who coordinated and implemented it. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Any other councillors?
So no, it looks like a fantastic program, and I think you've been putting it on 3 years now. So I think the number of participants, the providers, keeps going up, and that's fantastic to see that local engagement. My question is, I have 2 questions. One, I have not seen this term being used before, where you've said 3,400 unique children participated. If you could explain that. And then you've given us a breakdown, and in 2022 and in the 2021 report, we didn't have this breakdown. So I'm wondering why the focus on giving us this breakdown in terms of ethnicity breakdown, for example, and what does the 67% mean? And what was, compared to last year or the year before, 67% ethnic minority participation, as opposed to what was it last year, what was it the year before, and how does it guide your future planning?
Thank you. So the unique children differentiates between the number of children that attend overall, because some children will attend more than one event. And so we are focusing in the actual number of children as opposed to the number of attendances. And that's what we call them unique children. So we can separate that out from the 18,000 sort of encounters. And this is the first time we've had this information presented in this way, because it does exactly help us focus on whether we're reaching the right children. We aim to reach children who may not benefit from the same holiday opportunities as others, although I would stress that it is for everybody and every child, and it's a very much an inclusive program. So that information just helps us understand the uptake, the interest, and that will, with analysis, as you said yourself, determine whether we need to make adjustments. For example, in the north of the borough, where our providers suggest that we need to focus a bit more to ensure that we get the right uptake. And also, as you rightly said, we've been delivering this for about 3 years. Obviously, there have been different circumstances. So COVID was, very much influencing travel arrangements. People weren't perhaps going abroad or out of London as much. And so, you know, and we also want to understand that we've got the uptake and we've still got the interest and the desire. So all of that feeds into our forward planning.
Do you think that's the reason why the uptake's gone down a little bit this year? The fact that people have been able to travel more or are not here?
Yeah, we think so. Yeah, that's the hypothesis.
I think
Absolutely.
it's three things, Jackie. I think the first was the weather,
Yeah,
which so
was
that really
terrible.
did, and I think that whereas previously we struggled sometimes actually to get sessions to fill, this time we got lots of sessions to fill, but then people didn't come because obviously the sessions are free. So if you don't come, there's no kind of knock on if not coming, if that makes sense. So I think a lot of people signed up for things which then meant they were full up, but then didn't necessarily arrive. So that's something that we need to investigate. And I think, yes, I do think more people were able to travel out of the country, which meant that they had, there was less young people in the borough. So I think those are the three key things. And linking in also previously, the Armed Services Day, Uniform Services Day, they had a large number of unique people that came. So I think that again had a knock on in that not running the way it has done previously.
How does the demographic data compare with the borough's demographic data in terms of participation?
I know the free school meals is much higher. I'm not sure if I've got the data on the other bits, I'm afraid.
I think it compares well, actually, you know, so I think it shows that we are reaching the children and that there is good accessibility. So I think actually in terms of free school meals, SEND and minority or ethnic data, I think it compares very well, actually.
Councillor Renee.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say thank you. I think the summer in the city continues to grow more and people continue to love it because Nourish Hub, which is in my ward, you know, parents, they are complaining that the children loved it and they want it to continue, and I'm hoping next summer it will be the same because they enjoyed it. And so I'm saying that people from the north of the borough, you know, quite attended a lot of all those programs and quite enjoyed every event that was put for them. So thank you. That's all I need to report for now.
Brilliant. That's wonderful to hear. Thank you very much. Anyone else like to have any final reflections or thoughts? Just to say that I suppose I'll reiterate the theme that this is a lot of love and care and generosity of spirit that's going into a number of programs, and say the word, we are here to support if, you know, on funding or, you know, staffing, just do flag if all of these, every time we come, wonderful additional layers of offers and resources are, feeling like they are not a stretch, but you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of offers on. So say the word if we can support in any way, or if on the horizon you can see that, you know, funding running out for this, that, or the other, because it is brilliant what's being provided when money is so tight. It will be, you know, just so precious to the families and kids who are benefiting from it. So thank you so much. That's brilliant.
So I just had a question really. I know that in previous years there've been some concerns just about whether we're getting the communication right, and we've worked really hard to start that comms early on and to make sure that it's very visible, and we used a lot of promotion through social media as well as through the schools. And I just wanted to check with members of the CPAC whether you feel that that's reaching. I mean, the demographics data suggests it is reaching a broad church of people, but I just wanted to check that that feels visible and accessible to people.
I think I saw a lot more on the social media, which was good. And then I did check with one or two headmasters of schools, and they had received it. But in terms of encouraging them to push it, I think that would be helpful. Seeing that there's a trend in numbers going down, I think working with schools and saying, can you please send it off? to the parents early on in their weekly updates that they send to the parents. I think that would be very helpful for numbers.
Can I add? I think sometimes there is a perception that someone in the city is only for not suitable for young children with disabilities. So if you could just push that to say it's suitable for all and there are other providers involved. I think in the past, Parents Active has always commented on the summer in the city layout to see whether it was accessible. I think for the past few years, we weren't that involved, but there is a lot of visibility as mentioned, but just to make sure that it is suitable for young children with disabilities. And I think for young people with disabilities, it could go up to 25 and not many know that. I used to call them up and they used to say, okay, bring your son along. But if that also could be reiterated, that would be very useful.
Thank you. We'll certainly take those comments on board. I would just like to finish by thanking our mayor, who worked really hard to promote it this year and was very ubiquitous on social media. And it was fantastic for our young people to really have that motivation and inspiration. But thank you very much. We'll absolutely take your comments on board.
Thank you. Yes, thank you to Councillor Quigley. I saw some of those online. They were lovely, actually. Great. Okay, I think that is it for this evening. Thank you so much. Wowed as per usual with the reach and wide-rangingness of what we're offering, and more and more and more. So thank you so much. The next meeting will be on the 29th of January. So all for this year. Thank you so much for tuning in online. I'm sure numerous audiences, and to everyone who joined in the room. Thank you.